Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Checking out the forecast for what to expect over these next couple of days as far as severe weather is going across the ARK-LA-TEX region, parts of Kansas and Missouri. We got a lot going on, a lot to talk about as far as today and tomorrow. So there's a lot of events to catch up on. Right now, we're on the storm predictions tornado tracking site, ustornadoes.com. And checking out the forecast for today, you can see that 2% marginal risk, excuse me, that is over the southern parts of Kansas right now. That is the tornado risk for today. It's a very low end tornado risk, but there is some other risks and other hazards that are going to be in position for today that everybody should be kind of aware of. So down here, this is the convection outlook that the National Weather Service has placed over that region of parts of Kansas, upper Missouri, up into the very southern parts of Nebraska and Iowa. And you can see that slight risk there, and that is primarily for damaging winds and hail. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. A lot of hailmakers are going to be in position to roll through that area. So there's a lot going on. So we're going to take a look at the data. This is for tomorrow, which I briefly went over in the last video that I posted up here live on Facebook, and they have updated that report, and this is the updated report as far as tomorrow's weather event. I'm going to go over that as well after I go over today, the outlook for today. So right now, as we're looking at it, this is what the fronts and the lows are doing right now. You can see everything that's going on with these lows, or these fronts that are here. Got a dry line that's right here with a couple low pressure systems moving in from the west northwest. It's going to be a lot to really breed out a lot of low top cells, hail makers, and there is a damaging wind threat. I think the damaging wind threat is, I think that it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be long-lived. I think that primarily what you're going to be dealing with is, well, torrential rainfall is definitely going to be possible. It's a wet sector that's in this area right now, and got a lot of heat that's kind of meshing in with that as well. So you're going to have a lot of green skies today, a lot of hailmakers that are going to be rolling through that area. So let's take a look at what's going on. You can see that warm sector that's going up into this area. Sorry, it's early in the morning. And looking at 63, 58, got those warm temperatures in that area today, and those dew points sitting up there in the 50s in some places, the 40s up here going into Missouri, which that's probably going to expand between today and tomorrow. Now the Cape is kind of limited right now as far as Texas. It's going into the southern parts of Texas and everything, but once this spikes later on in the day, about the afternoon, I would say the early afternoon is when this is all supposed to start, and then going into the evening and eventually into the overnight hours of Sunday. These storms are going to be rolling through. This Cape is going to spike. They're actually looking at Mu Cape, MU Cape, most unstable Cape. Its surface is looking to be about anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000. So a lot of instability there in the atmosphere that's going on. Already going to have some wind shear that's going to be up as far as 60 knots moving into this area while these storms are going on. So definitely sufficient wind shear to get things spinning and rolling. You can see that supercell composite just a little bit kind of starting up now, just a little bit peaking. Not a whole lot of high levels. This isn't a high level of supercell composite, but you can see it's just kind of, starting the show here. Tornado parameters very, very low, or really none right now. And no helicity that's there right now, but this is the current data. So what we're going to do is we're going to check out pivotal weather here in a minute. But I wanted to go over some things here with you guys on this site here. So this is that look for today going across that area. So this is the categorical look. You can see that tornado threat, that 2% marginal risk in the southeastern part of Kansas right there. It is not a very high-end tornado risk. So if there is tornadoes, they're probably going to be a little bit on the lower end, and they're not going to last as long. MCS development is pretty limited today. Tomorrow is a very different story. But you can see that wind threat. There's damaging wind threats that are going to be all within this area, going all through the western portion of Oklahoma up into Kansas and that southern part where you have that marginal risk. So if you don't have tornadoes, you're going to have a damaging wind threat. That's most likely. And this is your hail threat. So across this entire region, this is what I was talking about. Anywhere in this band, you're going to have hail makers. So thunderstorms, a lot of thunder and lightning, probable torrential rainfall, and some hail. So today, if you get, crappy looking green skies in this area, don't freak out. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a tornado, but hail is something that you do have to worry about, and that's the greenage in the skies that you see when the skies get really nasty and green. It's because of hail, not tornadoes. So that's what produces that green tinge to the skies. Alright, so if you see that, don't freak out and don't panic that, there's going to be a tornado or anything but like that, but you do want to take measures to protect yourself from hail. Alright, so that is what is looking at as far as the convection outlook for today. Alright, now going into tomorrow, this is a very different situation. They have actually moved this entire outlook a little bit further to the east, where you can see a little bit more of that portion of that enhanced risk covering a little bit more of Illinois, further north of Missouri as well, where it's covering pretty much half of the state of Missouri. And like I said, that warm sector is going to expand through this area, through the ARK-LA-TEX region. This whole entire region is going to become a sort of warmer, wet sector, and that is kind of a breeding ground, you know what I mean, for these severe storms to roll out, where we're October 23rd right now, and if you're in this region and you go outside and it just feels a lot warmer than it should be for this time of year, well, that's because it is. You know what I mean? So we're having that warm sector go across there, and that's really not going to help your severe storm situations, because it's going to make it a more supportive atmosphere for severe storms to roll out. So this is that tornado threat that they were looking at. You can see that 5% risk that's in the outside area. Even in this green risk right here is still going to be supportive atmosphere enough for storms to roll out, some tornadoes that are possible. And then you can see in the middle there that enhanced risk with that 10% hatched area. This is a 10% additional risk for tornado development. And that's because there's a lot of, with all the supercell, these two lines of storms that I was showing you yesterday in one of the models, you can see those two thin lines kind of blowing into this region. Well, on those lines, they were looking at a lot of MCS, mesocyclone development, embedded in with those supercells that are going to be possible to roll through that area. That's the reason for that 10% hatched region right there, is because MCS development is very high, which means a probable case for tornadoes to roll out. All right, so not to mention your damaging wind threat. Now, the damaging wind threat has that red area right here with 30% additional risk. So if you don't get tornadoes, you could still have some pretty damaging winds. So today would be the day, as long as you're not getting hail, today would be the day to really batten down the hatches and kind of make sure that everything is secured and everything for that damaging wind threat tomorrow, because you don't need to have a tornado to have damage. You can have damage and damaging winds, you know what I mean, and very, very high winds. And this is that situation that it's looking like that's going on here, with just really, really hard winds that can damage your home, damage your property. It can cause injuries if, things start flying around. With a lot of the rain that's going to be going through there, trees can come down and be uprooted. A lot of different things to think about here. So make sure that you got everything kind of secured and locked down for that damaging wind threat tomorrow. And then the hail threat as well. So we're going to have hail makers rolling out with these storms as well. You can see that 30% additional risk right there for increased hail makers that are going to be possible across the Missouri region into Illinois. And then you also have a 15% risk on the outside right here for hail makers in the ARK-LA-TEX region. kind of, you know what I mean? Ozarks, all the way from Ozarks to the to ARK-LA-TEX region right there. You're getting that damaging hail threat with that 5% risk on the outside for hail. So anywhere in this area, you could have hail makers rolling out with these storms that are coming through. All right, so that's a basic overview from the National Weather Service that we're looking at as far as the severe weather goes. Now let's go over to the models. And we'll check out what's going on with the models here. So, all right, we'll look at, I really want to look at the high-res model. I haven't looked at these models yet today, but let's see what we got going on here. So this goes up into the 24th at 10Z. We might actually not have enough time with the high-res model. It doesn't look like it. So, yeah. Doesn't give us that wide of a view on this. Let's go to a different region here. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we got going on here. Now this is that first round of storms that's going through. This is not the severe round of storms, but you can see these little isolated cells that are popping up afterwards. There could be some renegade kind of runaway cells that are starting to build and make supercells through those. These little spotty little spots here. You could have some severe storms embedded with any of these. This is early in the period, as this is supposed to be starting kind of early in the afternoon. It'll be starting with that first round, and then later on going through the evening into the overnight hours is where it's going to roll out with the more severe round of storms. Alright, so now you can see that little wisp that's kind of showing up here, and that line is going to start to expand with isolated cells right there. So now you can see these cells popping up all along here, these little spotty kind of cells popping up here. And any one of these, because of how isolated they are, that's something that the National Weather Service is concerned about, because any one of these, you know, you could have supercells embedded in those. And as they roll out through the period, this is going into the overnight hours of the 25th now. So let's look at the hydrograph here in the atmosphere for this time frame here. So you can see the cap is broken. We got heat, increased heat and moisture going up into the air, stable wind field. Looks like a little bit lower on the wind field actually. Hydrograph looks good. Got that hail development there. Supercell development, it says none, but you know, kind of it looks like a weaker end. Actually, supercell development. This is in the later hours of the 24th. And then they start to build a little bit. Oops. So let's see. Pretty much getting the same thing here. A little bit higher of a supercell development, but still heat and moisture going up into the air. Hydrograph looks good. Tornado threat. There is a tornado threat apparent there. Let's go to the next frame here. Okay, where you're getting these cells much bigger. I think the FE3 is very, very accurate as far as what spot that you pick. So we do have a broken cap. It doesn't look like it's massively broken, but it is broken. You got a wide gap in between the two of them. Increased heat and moisture going up into the air. You got a stable wind field with higher winds now. So that's probably going to be that period there where you're starting to get damaging winds ahead of these cells. Yeah, I got supercell development significant. So we do have supercell development at this time. If you're looking, if we're looking in front of some of these cells, the hydrograph does look good. Got that nice hooking structure with a nice storm structure on it there. So a little bit higher end of a tornado threat. Tornadoes could possibly roll out of any of these, you know, these cells here. Let's look at another cell and see what we're seeing. That one doesn't look as promising. Let's see, marginal tornado. Some of these other ones don't look as promising, but I think this is because the FE3 does this thing where it's not going to know exactly how or where these storms are going to roll out, but it has a pretty good idea as far as it doesn't give an exact position where these storms are going to roll out, but it's like it kind of knows how they're going to roll out across the region, you know what I mean? So it tries to anticipate as best it can, I think, to anticipate what kind of situation that we're looking at here. All right, so, and then as we get into the early hours of the 25th, then you can see these lines, these squall lines of storms that are just kind of popping up and, you know, draping across the region. And then it looks like it starts to dissipate and weaken in its intensity. But up here, going into the Ohio Valley, I mean, it looks more isolated, but it doesn't look as intense. So let me go back a couple of frames here and look a little bit higher in the region where we're starting to get these first larger cells popping out in northern Missouri, and then you can see that, yeah, that higher tornado threat. So I mean, really, when we're looking at this, the highest, you know, the issue here is the wind threat and the ability for supercells to unfold and develop. So let's see. Okay, let me go back. This is the 25th. Let's go back to the evening hours of the 23rd, and let's take it from here. Alright, so nothing really impressive here, but then you start to see that storm kind of building up in northern Missouri, that first round of rain and storms that just kind of move out of the area after that point, and then you see these lines that are popping up here, and this is through the GFS model. And that's your period right there going into the 24th, the evening hours of the 24th to the 25th, where you're going to get those severe storms. Because of how straight line this is, even the GFS can pick that up. That's that's explaining a lot of the reason why there is a damaging wind threat here. With as straight and as thin and narrow as that line is, it just means that just ahead of it right here, in front of that line, that's where primarily the damaging winds are going to come from. Because about, I would say, 20 minutes before this line reaches your area, those winds are going to pick up pretty sufficiently. Alright, so now this is giving us a little bit more detail in the GFS as far as the supercell and significant hail development. So, and the 2000 to 3000 CAPE, the surface CAPE here in this is reading 2000 with heat and moisture that is able to go up into the atmosphere. Hydrograph looks the same as the other models. Alright, so, and tornado threat is apparent with that. Looking further north up into Missouri as the storms roll up to that area, it does seem probable for tornadoes as well up there. But the GFS doesn't look as crazy as some of the other models that I have seen. And I know that if we look at NAM model, it's going to, you know, anticipate the worst case scenario. So I typically don't try to use that as much because a lot of people get kind of freaked out and panicked, and I don't want that to happen because it doesn't really ever happen with these storms the way that NAM anticipates it. I think that NAM, you know, looks at the worst case. All right, so right around this time, I know it's kind of like a little bluish right here, but this is where you were going to start having these isolated spotty cells popping up. All right, so if you're looking in front of those little spotty cells, then you can see that tornado risk that's there. Stable wind field, broken cap, heat and moisture, 2000 is surface CAPE, supercell and significant hail development. Hydrograph looks good. Critical angle there. Yeah, so the tornado threat is definitely there. And then you get these two lines of storms, like I was saying before in the last video, where you're getting these two lines that are kind of blowing through. So unfortunately, your area is going to hit twice. It's going to get hit twice. If you were in really anywhere in that region in Missouri, from, you know what I mean, from the northeast corner all the way going across and the entire southern portion of Missouri, chances are you're going to get hit with the storm, and you're going to get hit with it twice because the two lines, the one line after the other. Okay, so now this is what I was talking about, where you see this a little bit worse than what it probably will be. This is, you know what I mean, it looks at kind of, I think it kind of overshoots the possibilities a little bit, but it tells you a little bit about what's going on in the atmosphere. That's why I use it for the forecasting models, and I don't use it for live data. Supercell and significant hail development is pretty high within that region, so which is probably kind of true because there is a lot of MCS development that they're anticipating through this region. And then the early hours of the 25th, the 03Z hour, then you get this big long line of storms with the training line behind it that is following behind it. So you know, you see the one frame where this kind of meets this, makes this big thick line of storms, and then this line just trains right behind it. All right, so, and that's what you're seeing here. That line just trains right behind that front line, that big squall line of storms, and where that threat starts to marginalize, it starts to you know, become more widespread, and then eventually dissipating later on. The hydrograph looks really good in this one. That's in the southern region of Missouri right there. But you know, like I say in all my videos, don't let the NAM scare you, because chances are it's not going to be this bad. It could be, you know what I mean? You could, anywhere along these lines of storms, you could have supercell development tornadoes roll out, but you know what I mean? Like this here where it says PDS Tor, particularly dangerous situation because you have really high levels of supercell development, enough CAPE for any severe storms to roll out. You got heat and moisture and all the accoutrement for storms to become severe. Wind fields are nice and stable. You're getting that little bit of that beginning to that curvature. Not much of it, but there is high winds at the surface level, which is going to be supportive for rotating supercells. All right, so, but this says PDS Tor. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a PDS Tor situation. This is just looking at what the atmosphere looks at this time. So please don't let, you know, don't let this put you into a panic. It just, for me, it tells me that the atmosphere in this region is unstable and there is a good chance for tornadoes. It doesn't mean to me that there's going to be a chance of tornadoes at E4 level. You know what I mean? So, or EF4 level. You know, we're not looking at that possibility right now until we know a little bit more information. Now, in the later hours of the 25th, we're looking at the 06Z hour right now as this drapes across the ARK-LA-TEX region in northern Arkansas. This is going to be your hour, you know what I mean? This is going to be like everybody's kind of golden hour, you know what I mean, as these kind of drape across Arkansas. We're getting the last remnants of that storm, the last life cycle where it's trying to survive here and trying to reorganize. Alright, so you are getting that instability and the possibility for those isolated cells to pop up going across the northern regions of Arkansas, and then eventually moves out of this area. Well, hang on a second. National, let's just do that. Okay, so we're at the 09Z hour. Right, okay, so as it kind of, you know what I mean, now you can see those cells that are just kind of isolated right there a little bit better through the regional. Alright, so yeah, so this, you know, the unfortunate part here is that this isn't something that's gonna, it's not gonna be something that's gonna blow away quickly. It's, you know, it doesn't start to dissipate now here until the 12ZR and the 25th. So, you know, going into the early afternoon hours, it's gonna start to weaken and move out of the area of Arkansas, where you still have a low-end tornado threat. You know what I mean, at that point in some parts of Arkansas. So until it moves out of that area in the afternoon, you guys are going to be dealing with this, unfortunately. So that is the timeline as far as the event for tomorrow. As this kind of rolls through, you can see those lines of storms just popping up right there. And I mean, if we look at that southern region of Missouri right there, that this is, you know, the building time right here. So the 25th, this is in the overnight hours. This thing is just getting started in the overnight hours of the 25th. So this is just ramping up. On that front line, the training line is not going to be as severe. That's what I'm seeing through all these hydrographs here, is that this training line is not going to be as severe as this front line, but there is a tornado threat in it. So there is a chance for MCS development, supercell development to roll out. But this front line of storms, that's going to be your primary worry going into the evening and overnight hours of the 24th to the 25th, Sunday to Monday. And then as it kind of reorganizes into this big squall line of storms, this one kind of tapers off and separates, and then eventually meshes together as one big squall line that goes across the northern regions of Arkansas, and then eventually out by the afternoon of the 25th and dissipates and weakens, moving up to, you know, the east and northeast out of your area. So what we should take from this here is that there is a tornado threat and a severe threat for tomorrow. This is just one of those situations where you just want to be weather aware, keep your warnings on, have a plan in place, get your families together and get your supplies and everything like that for your shelters or wherever you're going to be going in case of an emergency to keep safe. You know what I mean? Just start planning now and just have that ready before the afternoon of tomorrow, so that you got, you know, you're all prepared. Because there will be a weather event. I don't think it's going to be as horrible as what the NAM is saying. You know, I don't think that it's going to be like, you know, EF5 situation or anything like that. But I do think that there is a chance for some damaging tornadoes tomorrow that could do some damage, cause some injury, be definitely a threat. And I mean, what I've been seeing mostly this year with most of the tornadoes that have rolled through all of these states out in the Midwest is that a lot of these tornadoes, they have trouble getting organized. They have trouble getting going. You know, they ramp up and then they come down. They ramp up, they come down. They ramp up, they come down. And it's just kind of an up and down process because they keep burning off that energy trying to reorganize, and then they got to start from the beginning again. It's like they just kind of lose all their energy and then they go down. You know what I mean? They go up and down and up and down. So it might be a situation like that. I don't know. Got to see what the atmosphere is doing, what the storms are doing tomorrow as it kind of happens in the live event. But, you know, that's what I've seen from most of the tornadoes this year, is that they just kind of go up and down. And then by the time that they actually do become a tornado and touch the ground, rip through an area, they're really not as extreme as what the radar models had anticipated. Okay, so, you know, I don't think that this is going to be a complete disaster, catastrophe kind of thing, but you definitely still want to be prepared for that tornado threat. That is definitely not zero. Also, the hail threat, torrential rainfall, you're going to have some flooding worries as well. There's probably going to be some flood risk going on there, as well as damaging winds. You know what I mean? And if you can help it tomorrow, I know that it's Sunday. I know that people are still working and stuff like that. Please try to stay off the roads. You know what I mean? Try to be at home where you're safe. Stay off the roads. Going to get hail, torrential rainfall, possibly flooding. Thunder and lightning is going to be rolling through with these storms, as well as damaging winds and possibly tornadoes. Please try to stay off the roads if you can help it. You know what I mean? I understand if people have to go to their jobs, they have to work and do what they have to do, but it's just try to take extra precaution tomorrow, just to keep safe. All right, I appreciate you guys watching. Any further updates between today and tomorrow, I'll do another video and roll out with those updates and let you guys know what's going on. All right, please check me out on YouTube. I'm going to put this live stream up on YouTube as well, so you can check me out there. It's Severe Weather 2 on YouTube. So hope you come back and check out all the updates that I got going on. I'll let you know if there's anything new. Thanks for joining me.